So let's talk a little bit about Rockbridge and the investment thesis that you typically deploy. You've been focused on repositioning, acquiring assets that have been deprived of capital injection or poor management or whatever the case might be, and turning it around. Talk a little bit about that as
Yeah.
to what all goes into it. Then also, whilst you have delivered some phenomenal independent hotels, you've also worked with the brands at the same time. What goes into deciding what do you do and when do you do it, and how do you pick that jewel in the sand, if you would have the value to be turned around and repositioned for multiple returns?
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. We could have a whole podcast on that question. So I'll try to answer the first part of that question. Is that so? Hotels are both operating business and real estate, and operating businesses have operating leverage in them, and so what happens to assets is that uh, operating leverage works both ways. And when you don't reposition or have your asset positioned correctly for what the consumer wants, there's it loses its competitive positioning, it loses its pricing power, and it starts the spiral down. If you're an owner that doesn't reinvest in the asset, and therefore when you're in that position, when you're now no longer competitive, the only thing that can bring that property back is a massive investment in the asset. That is hard for owners to that have not reinvested in their asset to all of a sudden say, okay, now I'm going to put $30 million into an asset that's worth 10 million. I don't know how to do that's not how I create value. I don't know how to do that. Uh, and therefore it's worth what it's worth. So properties that we've bought have had zero cash flow. And what we have always done and have always been good at is identifying the assets that we can buy at a price that we can afford to make the investment that is right for that asset, that will position it correctly. Um, and so the discipline is knowing what you have to invest in that asset and have the vision and creativity and stomach to do it. But that's the hands-on work and the value-added work that our investors pay for and buy from us, that we're doing on their behalf because we know how to do it and go through that process. And so that is first and foremost, is that um, looking at that asset and what it can be, what is it missing. I like to sell is you can't sell what you don't have. So if if there's a lot of really great companies and strong group business in a market and you don't have good group event space, that's just, you might as well be invisible to the market. And contradistinction, if that this property where you can go in and fix that and then address a market that of which you were invisible to before you fixed that and created a relevant meeting event space, and social space, social event spaces that the market wants. Now you can redesign that for what the market wants today. So all the older properties are not as competitive as you, and now you're positioned in a way to address a market that the property could never address or take advantage of. And so it's really understanding the components of how you're going to create value versus and how you're going to monetize that investment. And ultimately, it's what the customer wants. And do we have what the customer wants? And I know that if we have it and create it, that we can go get it. And that is what creates durability.